Hello and welcome back to the live broadcast coming from the 2023 Sydney International Piano Competition. And I'm very happy now to welcome here to our little studio Kathryn Stott, who's here, of course, as a juror in Sydney, and of course, probably one of the best people in the world to talk to about piano chamber music. Welcome to the program, and thanks very much for finding some time for us, Kathryn.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Brendan. I mean, we're having such an amazing time, but and listening to all the pianists in their solo rounds. But I'm really looking forward to the chamber music, which is going to start, of course, tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine, because you bring in a few other instruments as well. You know, much and all as we love the piano, it's nice to hear a few other things as well.
Well, it's nice to hear, first of all, how the pianists are going to react to playing with other people. The repertoire is amazing. Let's not forget that. And it'll be interesting to see different sides of them, what it's like when they're not centre stage and how they react to somebody actually they've never met.
Right, it's quite something you are very practiced in, because you and I have met many times where I've seen you in festivals and you run from maybe a César Franck to a Brahms sonata and then across to a piano quintet or piano quartet. It's something pianists need to be able to do, isn't it? They need to be able to react quickly to play and manage this repertoire, but they also need to be able to work with other people in a special way, right?
Yeah, it's all about, it's all about dialogue. And I think let's look at this competition. So the competitors are going to come, the young pianists are going to come with some idea of that piece. They're going to meet Andrew or Liwei, violin or cello, and they will come with their perspective on that work. And then each starts with some idea, and very quickly you're sort of listening to the other person. Shall I follow here or shall I lead? And it takes a little while to kind of get in the zone of that, I think, as to how far you can go, how far you can influence. Sometimes you find you're just on the same track with somebody and you kind of follow the same path. Sometimes, you start and you maybe meet and actually you have very different ideas. And that's one of the great things in chamber music. You have to learn to compromise. You have to learn to work together. I mean, nobody wants to see an argument on stage, a musical argument, But I think what will be tricky in a competition setup is that, we're wanting to see these pianists react, but at the same time, we're wanting to see if they can take some lead. They might be a little bit nervous, I feel, to do that. I'm curious to see how they all react. And they also need to be able to go into the background. Let's not forget, they're each going to play a sonata, but also a sort of more of a showpiece for the other instrument. And they have to really accompany in more the traditional sense. So, we'll see how much experience everybody has in that, how far they will really listen and react, or be proactive and then react and see, like I say, it's a dialogue, and they won't have had that long. They maybe get an hour and a half, I think, in a dress rehearsal. It's not that long.
No, it's not, is it?
And it'll be, slightly heightened situation.
Yeah,
it's going to be really interesting.
Of course, who knows better the cello piano repertoire than yourself?
I know it quite well.
Yes, 40 years with Yo-Yo Ma, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, so pretty much so. And this is where I've encountered you a few times along the way as well. These pieces. What about playing for the cello? What are the certain aspects, sonorities of the piano that are important to bring out? Because the cello is the lower end of things, of course, and then the violin's at the top. So does the pianist need to react differently to these instruments? Yes.
Absolutely, Brendan. I think, with the cello, one of the obvious things is that the range is different, as you said. So it goes very, very low, and you can quickly cover that range. And one of the challenges is to be able to play with real dynamism and, be strong, or giving the impression of being strong without, decibel levels coming up over. So you have to, you can't shrink away like a mouse, because that's no good either. But of course you might have the lead or whatever. But with a violin, it's slightly easier in some way to find a balance, I feel. But the sonorities of the cello are something special.
They certainly are, and who knows better than you?
I'm sure lots of people know about it, but it even if they were playing with clarinet or they were playing with a singer, it's all the same principle. Or when they play with when they get with a quartet, chamber music is about dialogue. It's about being able to maybe release something you felt strongly about, or it's maybe being able to bring something to the musical table and say, hey, actually, have you thought about this? And what about... And that might happen without any words being spoken.
Yeah.
You know, just one little note going in one direction, you might think, oh, wow, let's go down this route. And hey, that might be really exciting.
So special antenna, actually, from both performers, where they're not speaking about something, but they're communicating on this level, which is what music is all about.
Exactly. So there might have to be a conversation at some point. You might say, what do you feel about doing this or that? But actually, a lot of it can be said without any words whatsoever. And what can happen is that everybody's had their rehearsal, and then you find actually in the concert, things feel really different. And, well, let's go. And who's daring? And you don't want to lead somebody up to a cliff edge and then leave them high and dry, because that kind of thing can happen. That's not so much fun. But, you know, it should feel exciting, like not too organised in a way. So I hope they'll all take some risks.
For our audience that's out there that perhaps don't know that much about chamber music and don't know what they're looking out for, what sort of tips would you give them to listen to? I know that some people say things like in a string quartet, sometimes it's good fun to try and listen to the viola, you know, or sometimes in certain combinations, there's things that happen in a certain way that work better than others. If you were saying to someone, listen out for this was what I'll notice.
I think, well, first of all, I'd be really listening to see if people feel that they're in a kind of rural unit. I'd also be looking to see if there seems even visually to be some sort of communication between the two. It can be a bit awkward sometimes depending where people are sitting or standing, but you want to feel that they're in a kind of bubble together, but have their own individual personalities. So I think I wouldn't want to say just listen to the violin or to the cello or just listen to the pianist. I want to see how they blend together and how they dovetail. You know, like one might lead the other somewhere. And then do you hear the piano coming back with a response? It's like us talking. I'm doing a lot of talking now. But, you know, you can interject with something and I'll stop and I'll listen. And then we might both chat at the same time. Who knows?
Indeed. Something a little bit more philosophical here as we sort of come to the end of this little time we have together. You know, we're looking at all these wonderful young pianists from all over the world, and you yourself have travelled all over the world, performed with all sorts of remarkable people. What do you think in this day and age, with all the big challenges the world is facing, what do you think the role of a musician is, and what do you feel your role as a musician is?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a loaded question, Brendan. I think the role of a musician in these times, very troubled times, busy times, hectic, life is chaotic, is to bring everybody to a place that you don't find in everyday life. You know, so it can be thrilling, it can be moving. I've heard some music here that has, you know, really touched my heart in a big way, and others where I've, you know, me and other people of the jury, we've come away and we've said, wow, we're so thrilled. But it's a way of, you know, in the bigger scheme of things, we have a language that has no barriers whatsoever. And I think that's what's special, you know, and we don't even have to label it as classical. It's music. It's a language. So I can sit down, I can play to a 2-year-old, I can play to somebody who's 99, you know, and it doesn't matter where we come from. They could be in Mongolia, I could be on the moon, even. It doesn't matter. We can just try and build connections by emotions. And, you know, it's a way to keep connected.
I'm reminded, just at this moment, the last time we saw each other, which was in Stockholm, where you were, of course, presenting the Dautio for Yo-Yo Ma. But in the press conference before, sitting next to me was a Danish journalist, and she said that something very moving. She said her son was actually in the army, and one of the things that was helping him, he was in a peacekeeping force somewhere, one of the things that was helping him was a recording of you and Yo-Yo that he had with him.
Wow.
And he said, you know, this is where I get my sort of recovery time, my connection to this. It must be very moving to hear something like that.
Well, it's meaningful, isn't it? It means something is happening. So that's a particularly deep example. So it can be something short, you know, but we never know what a piece of music means to anybody. You know, it can be a reason to take you back to a memory. It can give you new memories. It can take you back to when you were with your grandmother or something, or to a country, or, you know, just situations. And it can just take you away, not away from everything that's bad, because the world is also a wonderful place, but it can just be a special place that's unique. And I think when you can just connect to it, you don't need to know anything about it. You know, people often say to me, oh, classical music, I don't know anything about it, you know, so therefore I can't listen to that. And I said, well, you know, what do you actually know about pop music? You don't know about the construction, you just know whether you like it or not. And it's the same with music. You can just hear something and you're blown away just by whatever that means. It's a very powerful medium, and we're very lucky to be part of it.
Indeed. Another thing that I remember from one of our interviews in the past, you love practicing. Is that still the case?
Yeah. I don't know whether I do like practicing. I love playing the piano, but I mainly love being involved with music. You know, I would say the tough thing about practice is it's solitary, but you know that at the end of it, there is a reward. But I like exploring music, so maybe I think that's probably what I meant.
Indeed.
Sounds better, doesn't
Sounds better. Sounds pretty nice to me. Kathy Stott there, member of the jury here at the 2023 Sydney International Piano Competition. Thanks so much for your time, Kathy, and thank you, audience, for joining us for this live broadcast.